Welcome to RankLens. Today, we count down the top 10 largest data breaches in history. The digital world runs on trust. But when that trust is broken, millions of lives can be exposed in seconds. We're counting down the 10 largest data breaches in recorded history, moments when hackers, insider threats, or sheer negligence exposed some of the most personal information on the planet. Each breach teaches us something terrifying about who holds our secrets. From stolen credentials to social security numbers, these incidents shaped how we think about privacy forever. Starting at number 10, here are the breaches that changed everything. At number 10, Change Healthcare, 190 million records exposed. To understand why this breach matters so much, you need to know what Change Healthcare does. They process roughly half of all U.S. medical insurance claims nationally. Think about that. When you go to the doctor and submit your insurance, there's a good chance your information flows through Change Healthcare's systems. In February 2024, the ALPHV, also known as Black Cat, a ruthless ransomware gang, breached those systems. The attack wasn't just data theft, it was sabotage. Prescription processing ground to a halt. Healthcare billing systems froze across America. For weeks, the entire nation's medical billing infrastructure was in chaos. Hospitals struggled to verify coverage. Pharmacies couldn't process prescriptions. Patients faced delays getting life-saving medications. A single breach that touched millions of Americans' healthcare literally overnight. At number 9, Facebook, or Meta, as we know them now, 533 million records. Here's what makes this one particularly galling. The attackers exploited a vulnerability that Facebook had already patched back in 2019. They fixed it, but the damage was already done. The data was still circulating in the wild, and hackers found it anyway. The stolen records came from 106 different countries worldwide. That's nearly half the globe represented in a single stolen dataset. And here's the kicker. The full dataset wasn't ransomed or gatekept. It was released freely on a public hacking forum, accessible to literally anyone. No negotiation, no extortion, no ransom demand. Just, here you go, world. Hundreds of millions of accounts, their identities exposed to the internet at large. It's a reminder that sometimes legacy breaches haunt us for years after the vulnerability is supposedly closed. At number 8, LinkedIn, 700 million records scraped. This one is almost absurdly brazen because LinkedIn's own response was to call it mere data scraping, not a security breach. But scraping 700 million users? That's 92% of LinkedIn's entire user base at the time. In other words, if you had a LinkedIn profile, your data was almost certainly in this dataset. What was exposed? Phone numbers, email addresses, and detailed professional work histories. LinkedIn is built on the premise that you control who sees your professional identity. But in this breach, that control vanished. Hackers didn't just get email addresses. They got your job history, your employer names, your work phone numbers. For scammers and social engineers, this was a goldmine. They could target you with credible-sounding job offers, impersonating your company, or contacting you through legitimate-seeming channels. A massive vulnerability hidden behind LinkedIn's own careful classification as scraping rather than a breach. At number 7, India's ICMR COVID database, 815 million records. ICMR is the Indian Council of Medical Research, and during the pandemic, they managed India's national COVID-19 testing database. That database held the health records of hundreds of millions of Indians. But in 2023, those records surfaced on a dark web forum, and they were being sold. The stolen files didn't just contain test results, they were weaponized. Health test data was combined with Aadhaar numbers, India's biometric national ID, and passport details. For a potential buyer, this was a complete identity package. One file containing your health status, your government ID number, and your travel documentation, all together, all compromised. The implications are staggering. Medical discrimination, targeted identity theft, blackmail potential. In India, where Aadhaar is linked to everything from bank accounts to voting registration, this breach became a master key to personal life. The sale price and extent of distribution remain unknown, making it impossible to know how many malicious actors gained access. At number 6, the Shanghai National Police Database, 1 billion records. In 2022, a hacker publicly advertised access to the Shanghai National Police Database on a cybercrime forum. The asking price? Just 10 Bitcoin. The database contained sensitive police case files, actual criminal investigations, alongside citizens' personal identification data. Names, addresses, national ID numbers tied directly to active or past criminal cases. Think about the consequences. If you were ever arrested, investigated, or named in a police file, your identity was now linked to that record in a publicly traded database. Witnesses to crimes could be identified. Suspects under investigation could be targeted. Even innocent people mentioned in case files, victims, bystanders, witnesses, had their identities exposed in the context of a crime. In a city of 27 million, this breach created a comprehensive map of crime, criminals, and the innocent caught in between. The reputational and safety risks are immeasurable. At number 5, Aadhaar, 1 billion records. Aadhaar is India's national ID program and the world's largest biometric system. Imagine a database containing the biometric and personal information of over 1 billion people. That's Aadhaar. In 2018, that database was breached. And here's the shocking part. Access to it was reportedly sold online for just a few dollars for a backdoor to the identities of over 1 billion people. The exposed records covered nearly every enrolled adult citizen in India. Biometric data, government ID numbers, names, addresses, phone numbers, everything. Aadhaar is linked to virtually every critical system in India: bank accounts, voting, education, healthcare. With someone's Aadhaar number, an attacker could potentially impersonate them across the entire Indian government and financial infrastructure. This wasn't just a data breach. It was a breach of the foundational ID system of a nation of 1.4 billion people. The implications for fraud, impersonation, and identity theft are still unfolding. At number 4, the Real Estate Wealth Network, 1.5 billion records. Here's what makes this breach almost absurdly negligent. No hacking required. The database was simply unsecured, wide open. A publicly exposed database containing real estate transaction records from across the United States. The Real Estate Wealth Network had aggregated property ownership data, your home address, transaction history, property value, mortgage details, all linked directly to your name. Unlike financial data or medical records, property information exists in a strange gray zone. It's technically public, filed in county records across America. But aggregated and exposed this way, it becomes a weapon. Stalkers can find victims' home addresses. Burglars can identify high-value targets. Predators can locate specific individuals. The intimate link between identity and physical location makes this breach uniquely invasive. Your home is supposed to be your sanctuary, the one place that's truly yours. When 1.5 billion home addresses are leaked, that sanctuary becomes a potential target. At number 3, National Public Data, 2.9 billion records. National Public Data is a background check company most people have never heard of. They aggregated public records, criminal histories, property transactions, financial information, largely without users' knowledge or consent. Then, in 2024, they were breached. What was exposed? Social security numbers. For identity thieves, an SSN is a skeleton key. With it, an attacker can open credit cards in your name, take out loans, and file fraudulent tax returns. It takes years to recover from identity theft like this. 2.9 billion Social Security numbers represent virtually every employed American. The breach implicated the entire workforce of the United States. National public data filed for bankruptcy shortly after. But a bankrupt company can't compensate victims. It can't restore stolen identities. It can't prevent the SSNs already in criminal hands from being weaponized for decades to come. At number 2, Yahoo, 3 billion records. This breach is a masterclass in corporate deception. In 2013, Yahoo suffered a massive breach and initially claimed it was only 1 billion accounts. Months later, they quietly updated the figure to 3 billion, 3 times their original disclosure. The 3 billion accounts represented literally every Yahoo user account in existence. If you had a Yahoo email, a Yahoo account, or Flickr linked to Yahoo, you were in that breach. The stolen data included email addresses, phone numbers, security questions, and hashed passwords. Enough for attackers to impersonate users, reset accounts, and access recovery emails. The impact cascaded through the tech world. When Verizon later acquired Yahoo, they found out about the full scope of the breach and reduced their offer by hundreds of millions of dollars. A breach so massive, it devalued an entire company's acquisition price. At number 1, Cam4, 10.88 billion records. Cam4 is an adult live streaming platform, and in 2020, researchers discovered an unsecured Elasticsearch database containing over 10 billion records. That's the largest data breach by volume in history. The exposed data included sexual orientation details, private chat logs, payment records, usernames, email addresses, and IP addresses. What makes this devastating is the intimacy of what was exposed. Cam4 users engaged in private, adult interactions expecting anonymity. Instead, their identities, sexual preferences, financial transactions, and conversations became accessible to anyone. The data wasn't even password protected. It was simply there, an unsecured database on the internet. Millions of people were exposed to blackmail, extortion, harassment, and public exposure. 10 billion records representing the most sensitive moments of users' private lives. The largest leak in history. A chilling reminder that companies often have no idea how to protect the intimate data they collect. These 10 breaches didn't happen in a vacuum. They reveal a pattern. Companies collect massive amounts of personal data, often without full user awareness or consent, and then fail catastrophically to protect it. From your health records to your home address to your most intimate private moments, corporations and governments are sitting on powder kegs of personal information. The largest breaches aren't the flashy hacks, they're the negligent oversights, unsecured databases, patched vulnerabilities ignored, basic security hygiene that was never implemented. We can't control whether companies will be breached, but we can demand they secure what they collect. And we can ask ourselves, how much of our private lives do these organizations actually need? And that's the top 10 largest data breaches in history. If you enjoyed this countdown, subscribe to RankLens for more.